hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. So today's webinar is all about MOA benchmarking. We're looking in particular at their feedback and complaints module. So we are recording this webinar. You will be sent a copy of the recording and a copy of the PowerPoint notes. Let me just accept people into the meeting as they come in. Let me just introduce you to the people that are this side of the camera today. So my colleague Natalie, who we haven't got her photo up here, but she is there in the background, just checking on admin in the background. You know, if you have questions and that kind of thing, do just put it into the chat thread, and either Natalie or I will pick that up, and we'll either pause Dave and say there's a question, or we'll just wait and deal with it at the end. So I'm joined by Dave Sanders. He's the CEO of MOA Benchmarking. And I'm Marie. I'm the marketing manager at CareLineLive. As you are probably aware now, MOA and CareLineLive are sister companies. We have the same parent company, which is a very exciting kind of change for us. It means that we're both kind of underwritten by a significant investment fund, which is enabling us to do far more, both in the UK and in various other countries. But it's particularly released us in the UK for CareLineLive to blitz a bunch more product-related stuff, and is releasing MOA to do all sorts of new things in the UK as well, which I'm sure Dave will be talking about. So do feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and follow us there. Just a very quick overview of CareLineLive if you are not familiar with us. So we provide the home care management piece. MOA actually covers both home care and residential. We are on the NHS England's Assured Suppliers list for digital social care records. 3 aspects to our software: Carer Companion app, a management platform, and a portal for families and friends. I'm not going to talk through any of the rest of this detail because this is really all about MOA. So I'll run you through this little bit of basic info on MOA. So it's an integrated platform for governance, compliance, and continuous improvement, and works within CQC and CIW in this country at the moment. So it helps you to streamline compliance and quality improvement in adult social care, whether that's care homes, supported living, or dom care. The MOA originated in Australia, so it's a really leading, market-leading platform in Australia. So it has been tried and tested there, used by thousands of care providers globally. And there are a number of audits which I'm sure that Dave will talk to you about. So there you see our little Clive, our digital dinosaur, announcing our partnership under the AKKR umbrella. So Dave, look, I don't know whether you want to talk to this particular slide, and then I'll stop sharing and you can share your screen. So I'm going to hand over to you now.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Marie. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for making the time to jump into the session. Marie's already introduced me. The MOA benchmarking products, some of you may be familiar with, potentially most of you are not, however. The focus of today's session is obviously going to be on the feedback and complaints module that we have available within the system, and we're going to have a bit of a functional demonstration of that particular part of the solution today as well. As I understand it, it's a piece of functionality that a large number of CareLineLive clients are very eager to be able to have as part of their sort of broader software suites, and we're very happy to be able to fill that particular requirement. The MOA benchmarking solution, more broadly, I did want to spend just 1 or 2 minutes talking about, however. It's important to note that none of the additional stuff that is available through MOA is necessary. If you want to just use this for feedback and complaints, that's totally fine as well. But more holistically, we provide a end-to-end compliance and quality management and governance solution for the adult social care sector. So very, very briefly, the core of what we do for kind of our standalone clients is around the quality management side of things. So we accomplish that process through suites of audit tools in particular that are written for the CQC and CIW and other relevant social care standards. We've got a team of content and quality and compliance experts internally who maintain all of those self-assessment and audit tools and provide those to our clientele on an ongoing basis through the online system. As you'll likely be aware, the CQC are looking to significantly rework the single assessment framework as it currently stands. A concept similar to the old CLOE's key lines of inquiries that the single assessment framework has replaced are due to be incorporated back into the CQC's processes at some time in the quite near future. And that particular piece of work will be very significant for the MOA products, as all of the clients that are using our system will have immediate access to compliance tools written for that new framework, however that might look. That sits alongside all of the other ancillary modules that we have in the platform as well. So the incident management system, which allows for some quite detailed reporting and analysis of accident and incident data, which can be drawn in from whichever system you're currently using to record those data. And we also have a broader risk management tool, an enterprise risk register of sorts, which allows you to log and document all of the areas of risk that you're managing within the organization and what your mitigations and controls are for those, and schedule regular reviews of those too. At the heart of all of that is our continuous improvement module, which allows you to draw all of the data from those various different components and to essentially demonstrate that you're doing something with that information. So to be able to log continuous improvement plans within the software, assign those to individual people who will have ownership and responsibility for those actions, and push those through to completion. So as I say, a full end-to-end compliance and continuous improvement and governance piece is available through the MOA platform. What we're looking at in particular today, though, is the feedback and complaints product that's available through MOA Benchmarking to CareLineLive customers. As I mentioned, that feedback and complaints module is a standalone piece. It's not necessary to pick up any of the other components that MOA offers. You can just have that in isolation if that's what you're particularly interested in grabbing. So I thought the best way to demonstrate that today might be to have a bit of a functional demonstration of that feedback and complaints module itself, and run through a couple of simple scenarios to give you a bit of an idea of exactly how it works and how it all comes together, so you can see whether it's something you might be interested in picking up. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and we can have a look at a few of the demo scenarios that we're going to work through with the module. Okie dokie. So before we jump into one of the demonstration scenarios, just some high-level bits and pieces on how the feedback and complaints module works. The feedback module within the MOA benchmarking system sits as a series of digital forms through which your clients, their relatives and representatives, your staff and any other stakeholders within the organisation can submit any feedback, whether it be positive or negative or otherwise, about anything that's going on in the within your service and within the care and service provision that you are undertaking. All of that information can be submitted either anonymously or with identifiers associated with that data, and it flows immediately into an online system that will notify relevant staff within your organisation that the feedback has been received, and support you through the workflow process of not just logging and responding to that feedback, but also providing some reporting and outcomes and some broader analysis and dashboards around the types of feedback that your organisation is receiving. So we can describe all of that in the abstract, but perhaps a more useful way is to jump in and just have a look at a few example scenarios of how that might work. So in this first example that I'm going to run through on the system, the hypothetical that we're going to work with is a relative of a dom care client logging feedback in the system. In this scenario, we're going to work with an example where a hypothetical domiciliary care provider has a client for whom they provide some domestic support services and in particular cleaning services. And in our scenario, the situation is going to be that a relative or representative, so the son or daughter, for example, of that dom care client, has noticed that the cleaning in parts of their home has not been up to scratch and they're not satisfied with that particular part of the service offering. So that relative representative will be able to submit that feedback directly through an online form. That will flow through into the MOA benchmarking platform, and that will trigger notifications to the relevant staff within your organization, and they'll be able to carry out the initial response and classification of that incident, of that piece of feedback rather, respond directly within the application, and ultimately log what it is that's been done to address and rectify that piece of feedback and close it out as appropriate. Now, there's a few ways in which feedback can be entered into the MOA benchmarking platform, which is what we're looking at on the screen here now, incidentally. But most commonly, and particularly for the hypothetical that we're going to work through today, all of the service branches or outlets that you have within your organization, once they're configured for feedback and complaints within the MOA module, there'll be a specific website and QR code associated with that website that can be used for anybody to submit feedback about that service. Most commonly, we'll see clients do things like print these out into information packs that live in their clients' homes, or as fridge magnets that can be put up in the homes, or things of that nature as well. So for our scenario, we're going to imagine that a relative or representative, as we said, has noticed that the cleaning services that this dom care service are providing to their relative are not up to the standard they would expect. So they're going to click on this link or scan this QR code wherever that may be published, and that will take them to this online feedback form. Now, these forms are all customizable around exactly how you'd like to capture your information, but the examples we're going to work through here are some generalized ones to give you an idea of how that can typically look and how it's typically implemented. So in this scenario, the piece of feedback that's being provided is a complaint, and we're going to outline exactly what the detail of that is. So the relative or representative may say something along the lines of, noticed that mum's bathroom has not been cleaned to a very good standard in the past few visits. There's a few other fields that are then filled in to accompany that piece of feedback. The person providing it can choose to remain anonymous if they wish to. Obviously, that restricts the care organisation's ability to respond directly to that feedback, and there's notifications that are provided to the person providing the feedback to that effect. However, if we say that we do want to identify ourselves, or that as the person lodging this feedback, we do want to hear a response directly, the form will then require us just to put in our general details. So I'm going to just plug my details in here, select that I am a family member of a person in the service, pop my phone number in here, and my email address. The person filling the form also has an option to identify that they're making this feedback on behalf of somebody else. That would typically be done if it was a relative or representative lodging the feedback on behalf of, their family member who is the actual client of the care organisation. And in that case, you put the client's details in here as well as a separate set of fields. Just to keep it simple, I'm just going to select no on that field and just put one set of contact details in. We've also got the option of identifying that this is confidential feedback. In instances where the feedback is marked as confidential, only select users within the care organisation will be able to see that feedback and to access reporting around it and respond to it. So the people lodging the feedback can use that at their discretion. Typically, that will be used for obviously pieces of feedback that are more sensitive in nature. For this particular one, I'm going to choose no, again, just because it'll simplify that process, but it's a useful feature to have access to. And then the last thing that the person submitting the feedback will need to do is check off that they've understood and agreed to the privacy statement. So the privacy statements that are provided on these forms are tailorable around each individual organisation's requirements. If you've got a general privacy policy or something of that nature which you need to accompany these forms, we can pop that in here for you automatically as well. But that's all there is to submitting the feedback. So the person submitting this complaint in this case has, in our hypothetical, scanned the QR code in their relative's home, put in the details of the feedback, pop their contact details in, and they'll then submit it. That will then go straight into the feedback and complaints reporting module within the MOA benchmarking software that you and your service staff will have access to. And the person who submitted it will get given a feedback ID, which they can quote if they want to get in touch with it. Pivoting back then to the MOA system itself. So in here, if we jump into our view all screen for the feedback and complaints, we can see here that that feedback that's been submitted by that relative or representative has popped up into this register here. So this screen here will be viewable by staff that you nominate within the organisation to be able to see the feedback and complaints that have been received. And depending on their level of access, they'll be able to see different collections of feedback and complaints. And you can restrict that access based on categories of feedback or to certain service branches or to different levels of confidentiality around the feedback. But if we click through to this one that's been received, this takes us through to sort of the next step in that workflow, which is the relevant person within the organisation reviewing this feedback and first drafting the initial response and acknowledgement of it, and then logging what it is that's going to be done as a resolution for this, in this case, the complaint. So we'd go through, we would review what's been provided on this complaint, and then the first step is to categorise it. So the categories that you can use are customizable for each individual organisation. This is just an example list, but we're going to file this one under service delivery and give it an optional secondary category of quality of care and support provided by the organisation. We're then going to assign ownership of this particular piece of feedback to an individual person, and it's that person who will receive an email notification to tell them that they have ownership of that piece of feedback and they're responsible for following it through to completion. As part of that process, there are also escalation rules available to configure within the system, which mean that, in this case myself, if I don't respond to this piece of feedback within a specified time frame, the system will automatically notify other users of the system so they're aware that that's sitting there waiting for action. This particular piece of feedback is not a high-risk complaint, and we're going to mark it as appropriate. And there's also no severity rating that would be applicable to this as well. Those would typically be used for things where there's been some harm or injury that's resulted and that this feedback relates to. So fortunately, in this case, we're going to select no on that field. And this is not the type of feedback that would typically require an RCA or a root cause analysis. So typically the root cause analysis would be for serious incidents or recurring complaints or things of that nature. We're going to mark no as this, at this point, is an isolated incident. We then have our duty of candor checklists that we work through for the piece of feedback. So first and foremost, we identify whether we're actually able to complete that process. If the feedback is anonymous, then we can't, but that's not applicable in this case. Have actions been taken in response? Well, yes, we're going through that process now. Has the complainant received information that they're about to as we complete this form? Acknowledgement will happen as soon as possible, and then express regret or say we're sorry. Again, we'll tick all of those because that's inherent within this process here. And then we're going to go down to the communication and action section of the form, and we're going to create a response to this piece of feedback. Now, this is where we can start to leverage a few tools to help with the workflow, and particularly in the initial response to this particular piece of feedback. AI is sometimes a useful tool for drafting these responses. We have a very tightly controlled and heavily guardrailed AI implementation in this particular module, but it can be used to help draft the initial acknowledgement and response to the feedback. Now, the particular AI model that we use, we are able to coach it on your particular sort of organizational voice and tone that you would like it to adopt when it's drafting responses to the feedback, and what sorts of things you would like it to include. It's important to note that the AI is never going to actually send out any communication of its own volition. All that will happen is it will be drafted for an actual human to review and confirm that they are satisfied with that response. But it's always going to be, it's a human in the loop implementation in every instance. For this, however, the system has drafted for us a particular piece of response. We're going to review that and identify that we are that we're happy with this response that's been drafted, and in this case, it's a generalized response, acknowledging the complaint, expressing that we're sorry that that's happened, and that we're going to take immediate steps to rectify it. So we're happy with that response. We have a few different options here. We can send it via email directly from the system, or alternatively, we can record this as a written or verbal response on our register here. So if you're communicating about this piece of feedback in any other way, you can record those responses on the log for that feedback form as well. And then we're going to create an action associated with this feedback as well in this hypothetical. So in this particular example, the action might be that we just review cleaning processes that that the relevant staff are carrying out, and ensure adequate time is provided in bookings to accomplish this. Again, this is a very generalized example. Hopefully you can see how this could be applicable to anything. I'm sure you'll grab the idea. I'll assign this to myself, put a due date on that particular action for this piece of feedback, say the end of next week, and we save that action as well. So this then has become something of a living document for tracking this piece of feedback. So we can see, if we recap what we've gone through here, we can see we've got the details of the feedback that was submitted. We've got the categorization of that particular piece of feedback. We've got some operational checklists, and then we've got the log of the actions and the communications that we have undertaken as part of this feedback. If we fast forward to the end of this workflow, so we've we've gone through our process of reviewing what our cleaning staff are doing when they're visiting clients, and that they have adequate time and resourcing and those sorts of things to conduct that work when they're visiting. Ultimately, we would mark this through the various different stages of the workflow, but we're going to fast forward through to our resolve. So we're going to skip forward a few days where we've reviewed that process, and our staff are now working to a stricter set of working orders when they're going out. When we mark this out, we're going to go through a checklist of ensuring that the person who's provided this feedback is satisfied with the resolution that we've done and has been satisfied with the handling. So we're going to just mark this person is satisfied with the process. We can put some more information in there if we like. Mark that it was closed out. We're going to mark that as today. We're also going to align this with statement of rights, which might be applicable for different types of care organisations, depending on exactly what it is that feedback relates to and the type of care and service you're providing. If we want, we can schedule a follow-up date, outline any other actions that we need as well. The system will notify us about that as we go through. And then we outline what the resolution was. So have ensured that staff are aware of cleaning obligations for relevant contracts. And will proactively communicate with applicable clients to ensure satisfaction. And then once we've got all of that in here, we save this piece of feedback. Oops, we missed a field here, so it's going to ping me on that. And also, yes, they have. Okay. And we're going to mark out that our action here as well is completed. And then we can save this to our register. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the workflow through that feedback process. And again, this can be as extensive or as pared back and simplified as you would like it to be. But again, fundamentally, we've received the piece of feedback. We've categorized it and decided what level of risk and severity is associated with this. We've provided an initial response to the client. We've logged and completed an action in association with this feedback. And then we've closed it out and logged the outcomes that we have for this piece of feedback as well, and identified what it is that we're going to do moving forward. All of the feedback that's logged, of course, will still appear on this feedback register, and the ones that are marked as completed, we can view those as well if we filter this to see our resolved pieces of feedback. So this is obviously really useful in the context of reviewing and governance reporting and for CQC inspection and things of that nature as well. So you can demonstrate that you've got this register of all of the feedback, and you can click through to all of them at the various stages of that workflow to see where they're up to and see what's being done and make sure that timely responses are being submitted. And then finally, the probably most powerful element of all of the feedback and complaints module is the dashboard reporting that's available within the system as well. So we're going to pivot across here to the dashboard reporting module from a example organization here that's got a bit more data entered in. Just bear with me while this refreshes, sorry. But what we can see in this screen is an overview of all of the, and a dashboard summary of all of the feedback that's been received by a particular organization. So if we filter this and say we want to look at everything that's happened across our, sorry, bear with me. This is just, so we'll be going to our feedback dashboard. And we want to have a look at all of the feedback we've received across our dog care services. And let's say that we want to look at everything for the year to date. And this will give us a month-by-month breakdown of all of the feedback that we've received, the different levels of categorization and categories and types of feedback that's been received, the resolution times, escalation periods, and all sorts of things like that. So this lets us see, you know, for example, month on month in that reporting period, how many pieces of feedback were created and how many were resolved or otherwise dismissed. We can see the point in time status on each of these as well. So for example, in June, we can see that there were quite a large number of pieces of feedback submitted and none were closed out. And we can also see that at that same point in time, we had a lot of open, ongoing, unresolved feedback. So if we want to look at exactly what that big cluster of feedback we received was in relation to, we can click through into that particular column chart, and it will bring up the list of all of the pieces of feedback that we've received that meet those criteria and what was going on with those. Further down the page, we can see the categories of feedback that the categories that we're receiving feedback under, the feedback by type, so positive, neutral, and negative, the source as well, so whether that's come from the online forms, whether it's come from face-to-face phone calls, emails, all sorts of things of that nature, and whether the severity ratings, the escalation timeframes, and the resolution times for all of the feedback that we receive. So quite powerful reporting that's available to you at your fingertips here as well. And folks, that's about all there is to it really with the module. So as I say, relatively straightforward workflow and quite powerful reporting that's available to you within that. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they would like to raise or take a look at while you have us? I don't think I've seen anything come up in the chat so far.
There's nothing at the moment, but I guess the question on everyone's lips would be, what does it cost?
Yes, so the pricing for the feedback and complaints modules, we have a list price of £50 per service, so per branch per month. So that's what the list pricing starts at. But for smaller organizations, if you've got fewer than 15 clients, the pricing comes down, it scales down from that £50 per month price point. So that's the starting point. But if anybody has any interest, we're always happy to have a chat and figure out what we can organize for that too.
And I might as well carry on asking questions while others are kind of thinking about it. So,
yeah, for sure.
How does this compare with what is normally available in a system like CareLineLive? You know, not necessarily CareLineLive, but you know, other home care management software solutions. To what degree do they address feedback and complaints and keep that kind of audit record?
Yeah, so the main thing that we think is that MOA products quite a bit of an edge is the workflows and the reporting that's associated with it. So there are lots of systems out there that will let you record and log feedback and just give you effectively a static list of the feedback that you've received and maybe an option to close them out. That workflow support, the communication logs, the action logs associated with the feedback, and then particularly the dashboard reporting that we have up on the screen here at the minute. Those are all things that we don't see done especially well or particularly often with other solutions that are available on the market. So those are kind of the things that compare and kind of set us apart a little bit.
Great. And so Dave, when you're talking at events and you're meeting people, what typical questions are they asking other than the two that I've just posed to you?
So the typical questions that we get are around, with anything to do with feedback and complaints, confidentiality is a key issue. So the controls that we have around that are quite tight. So in terms of who can have access to this module, we can synchronize a list of users within the MOA system based on the staff that you have configured within your CareLineLive tenancy. We can also give you the option to manage that list of access independently within the feedback and complaints module. And then within the access to that module, you can restrict which staff can see certain types of feedback. We saw earlier in the demonstration too, that option to mark feedback as confidential. So you can restrict access to that confidential information to certain staff as well. So those access controls are one thing that we get asked quite commonly. And then the other one is around oops, sorry, I can just see a couple of questions that are popping up there from Elijah.
Carry on and I'm going to pick that up in a minute.
Yeah, sure. And then the other questions that we get are, again, largely around the reporting and the ability to extract that to other systems. So that's something that we used to be able to provide via Excel extracts. So if you do have other BI tools and things of that nature that you want to be able to plug this into, we can do that. Largely, however, the new dashboard screen that we have here addresses that quite significantly. So you can drop stuff from your feedback register out to Excel exports and that sort of thing. We often find that that's not necessary now with the reporting tools that we have available.
Okay, so Elijah is asking whether it would be possible to test MOA themselves to see how useful it would be for their services. Question number one.
Yes, we can set up a trial system for you, Elijah, to have a play around with. As part of that process, we'd probably like to just have a quick 15-20 minute call to figure out exactly how you'd like it configured and who needs access and those sorts of things, so we can set it up so that it's going to work well for you. But we're happy to, usually we'd run those trials over the course of about 1 to 2 months and just see whether it's going to work for you, whether it's something you want to pick up.
That's great. And then he's also asking whether it's linked to CareLineLive software in terms of documentation.
Yeah, so one of the exciting things about the new kind of corporate structure that CareLineLive and MOA Benchmarking are both a part of is that it opens up a lot of opportunities for us to do those sorts of integrations between the pieces of software. So at the moment, we are able to pull lists of CareLineLive clients out of the system via the API for each for CareLineLive customers, so that you're able to link feedback to individual clients within your CareLineLive tenancy in our system. And very shortly, we will be able to do things like push those feedback records back into CareLineLive and record those against an individual client's records. So in terms of documentation, you won't need to be jumping between the two systems to identify what feedback, for example, or what complaints have been logged by individual clients. That information from we're looking at Q1 next year will be able to be viewed directly within CareLineLive as well.
That's great. So if anyone else has any questions, now is your chance. If you just stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, sure.
Dave, and I'll just share mine for contact details. So you can get in touch with MOA Benchmarking directly via their website, via LinkedIn, and there's Dave's contact details there as well. You'll also find that there's some MOA pages on the CareLineLive website now. So if you look at our solution, you'll see MOA on there. So if you want to take another sort of quick overview of what the software does, you have those two websites as options for that. I just wanted to let you know that we have a webinar on compliance. So, some overlap here. That's happening on Wednesday, the 3rd of December, so next Wednesday. And that's with our home care champion, Marina, who has just completed an ebook all about regulatory frameworks in all the regions of the UK and Jersey. And Georgina, who is an independent consultant who advises home care providers on compliance. So she's going to go through some of her tips there. So we would love to see you at that. We will send you a link to that in the email that is followed up. And obviously, if you're not a CareLineLive customer and you would like to learn more about our solution, do get in touch with us. And I mean, our sales staff can do a little brief overview of MOA as well. But if you're interested in MOA, you need to get it from the horse's mouth, get Dave to do that demo for you rather than one of our guys. And we have a new ebook on compliance too. So that is available. And again, it's in the resources section of our website if you'd like to download it. So enough of me talking just while I was filling space as much as anything else for any more questions to come. I think that was probably it. So thanks very much for your time today. Dave, thank you everyone that's made time to come onto the call. We recognise that this is a sort of, you know, it's not as fundamentally adopted across the sector as home care management software, but it should be. And your service will improve by adopting these kind of more cutting edge technologies. So I would encourage you to have a look, get a demo, you know, play around with it with your company for a month or two and see what benefits it can bring. Lovely. I'm going to close that now. Thank you very much for everyone's time.
Thanks, everybody. Pleasure to see you all.